I didn't plan the moment my life split in two. It wasn't some dramatic storm or slammed door, more like a seam giving way under too much weight. 3 days ago, I walked out of the apartment I shared with my boyfriend while he was out drinking with his friends. My hands shook then. They're still shaking now, not from regret, but from how long I let myself stay. We were at O'Malley's the night it finally cracked open. Same sticky table, same neon sign buzzing like a migraine. It was me, my boyfriend Derek, his best friend Cole, my girl Nina, and a few people from work. Friday night in any American city looks the same. Somebody's laughing too loud. Someone else is trying to forget a week that chewed them up. I'd had 2 hard ciders and the kind of smile you put on like foundation, thin even, meant to hide things. Then the waitress came. A brunette with a quick grin and the kind of calm you earn from carrying too many plates and too many people's moods. She slid up to our table, pen twirling. "What can I get y'all?" Derek's face switched on the way it always did when there was an audience. "Didn't you serve us last week? You got the best memory in this place." She laughed, eyes flicking to him, and wrote down his order like nothing else in the room mattered. Nina shot me a look over the rim of her glass. I shrugged like this was nothing, like this was a joke I'd heard so many times it no longer needed a punchline. This is how it always started, with charm like a light you can't turn off. When the drinks came, she set mine down first, Cole second, everyone else's in a neat circle. Derek's beer landed last. Their fingers brushed in that slow, deliberate way that says, "I'm not sorry." She slid a folded napkin to his side of the table. He didn't even have to open it for everyone to know there was a number inside. Derek raised his eyebrows halfway to a smirk. "Wow, bold!" Cole elbowed him. "Guess you still got it, man." The guys laughed. The music bounced hard in my chest. I looked at the napkin like it was a grenade rolling toward my lap. "You planning to use it?" I asked, calm, or at least trying to sound calm. Derek leaned back, beer tipped against his mouth, smirk finally landing. "Relax, babe. We're not married. You don't own me." The table went quiet. Even the jukebox lost its nerve. I watched Nina's fork clink against her plate as she stalled for me for time, for something. I swallowed hard and heard my own voice say almost politely, "You're right." He laughed, that small, thoughtless sound that used to make me feel like I was chosen, and now felt like I was dismissed. And then he moved on like nothing had happened, like the whole table hadn't just seen the ground tilt under my chair. That's the part people never tell you, that sometimes the first big rupture doesn't look like a fight. It looks like a tiny sentence you can't unhear. It looks like you rehearsing your smile in real time, because you've learned the easiest way to survive is to keep the peace and bleed later. On the way out, I held the door for a stranger who said thanks and met my eyes like they meant it. I wanted to take that ordinary kindness home, but when we got to the apartment, Derek just dropped onto the couch, scrolling, still chuckling about how jealous I'd looked. I stood by the kitchen island with my keys in my hand like maybe I'd leave and somehow not have to walk out. "Did it make you feel good?" I asked. "Making me look stupid?" He didn't look up. "Oh my God, Riley, you're still on that. It was a joke. A joke at my expense." He sighed big like I'd asked him to carry the couch alone. "You always overreact. It's exhausting." Something in me split, not with a bang, but with the quiet sound of old thread letting go. I saw our life in frames, the couch I paid half for, his vinyls taking up every shelf, my books bent under speakers he swore he'd move one day, the framed print of Venice I bought because he said it made the room feel grown up. Suddenly, it all looked like a museum exhibit labeled "How to Disappear" next to a man who takes up too much space. He fell asleep with his phone on his chest. When it buzzed at 2 a.m., the screen flashed. "Amber O'Malley's." A text. "You're fun. We should grab a drink sometime." My heart didn't break, it went quiet. There's a difference. One is messy, the other is surgical. By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. I pulled out the college duffel from the back of the closet and started folding my life into it. Shirts smooth as apologies, jeans rolled tight like things you stop arguing about. My cat, Clementine, watched from the counter, her tail twitching like a metronome set to the tempo of consequences. I took my favorite mug, my grandmother's blanket, the photo of me and my mom that he always pushed aside to make space for his record player. I unplugged the coffee maker I bought because he kept forgetting, to replace his. It was small and necessary and mine. Taking it felt like naming myself out loud. I grabbed a notepad from the junk drawer and wrote 10 versions of the same thing. You're right, you're free. I don't own you either. None of it landed where I needed it to. Finally, I wrote, you were right, I don't. 4 words. All the roads I hadn't taken curled up between the letters. I set the note under his phone and left my key on top. Before I turned off the lights, I looked around one last time and thought, you never wanted to belong anywhere, that's your freedom. This is mine. The room went dim the way a chapter goes dim when you reach the last line. Somewhere outside, the city was already awake. It didn't notice I had decided to be awake too. Nina was waiting outside with her car idling and that soft concern she carries like an extra blanket in the trunk. You sure? She said. He said we're not married, I answered, lifting the duffel into the back. I'm just believing him. The first few days after leaving aren't cinematic. They're administrative. They're remembering to buy a shower curtain and figuring out which drawer feels like home for spoons. At Nina's place, we sat on her balcony with tea steaming in chipped mugs. She asked if I thought Derek would even notice I was gone. I said he'd notice the coffee, he'd notice the towels, he'd notice the Wi-Fi bill. Me? Not really. At 3 a.m., my phone started to vibrate across the coffee table like it had something to say. Then the text came, flipping through the usual channels. Confusion, reassurance, annoyance, blame. Where are you? You're being ridiculous. You're overreacting. We need to talk. This is so immature. Nina glanced at the screen. You gonna answer? No. Good. Silence is a sentence. I didn't sleep, but it wasn't an anxious insomnia. It was the kind you get when a loud machine in your house finally turns off and you didn't realize how much it was always humming in the background. In the morning, the light crept across the floor, and for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting to calibrate my mood to someone else's. I found myself scrolling through old photos. There we were at the lake, his arm heavy around my shoulders, my eyes trained on his face, like I could will him to meet me there. I remembered what he said to a bartender after that picture was taken. You've got the prettiest eyes I've ever seen. When I told him it hurt, he said I was adorable when I was jealous, like my feelings were a party trick. Looking at the picture, I realized I'd started leaving that day. Most exits begin with a tiny step no one sees. By the afternoon, he switched to unknown numbers. You can block me, one text said, but you can't block what we had. I typed back, you're right. I can't block memories. I can stop living inside them. Then I blocked that number too. A week later, I signed a lease on a small studio on the East End. The walls were blank and honest. The window was a rectangle of sky I didn't need permission to look through. The first thing I unpacked was the coffee maker. The second was the peace lily Nina showed up with, the tag still on the pot, as if it came with instructions, gives white flowers, likes indirect light, learns the shape of your breath, and forgives you when you forget to water. Call her Olive, Nina said, because she's peace, obviously. You're sentimental, I told her, coming from the girl who moved out over a sentence. It wasn't the sentence, I said, setting the pot in the sun. It was the echo. Then let this be the answer, she said, tapping the pot like a blessing. At night, I lay on a mattress on the floor, the ceiling a new shape above me, the city a low hush. I wrote in my journal, he said I don't own him. Maybe the truth is, he never meant to stay. It wasn't a wound anymore, it was a map. The messages from friends trickled in. People wanted details, as if knowing the exact size of the final straw would make them feel safer in their own houses. Cole texted, Derek's freaking out. What did you do to him? I stared at the screen until the words blurred and typed back. I stopped choosing someone who made me feel small. That's not doing something to him. That's doing something for me. 2 weeks after I moved, Derek called from his real number, and I picked up because I'm not made of stone and because curiosity is a stubborn muscle. Riley, he said, voice soft, like he'd put it on special. Just one conversation, coffee. Fine, I said, one coffee. Then we're done. The cafe looked like a set. Exposed brick, string lights, latte art like Valentine's. Derek was already there, staring at the door like guilt might walk in. He stood when I did. Hey, hi. You want your usual vanilla latte? He asked. I'll take it black, I said. He looked taken aback. Still bitter, huh? Not bitter, I said, taking the cup. Honest. We sat. He studied me like I was a riddle he didn't like. So you really left? You sound surprised. I just didn't think you'd actually do it. I didn't think you'd give me a reason, I said. He flinched. Then, all at once, he rushed in with the script. You know I was joking that night. Do I? The whole table went silent. You went loud. I was drunk. You were cruel. I leaned in. There's a difference. Drunk wears off. Cruel sticks. He traced a circle on his cup with one finger. You blindsided me. No warning. No note. There was a note, I said. You didn't see it because you weren't looking. What did it say? It said, you were right, I don't. He squinted. I don't what? Own you, I said. Control you. Drag you to the kind of bare minimum respect I kept trying to teach you. He laughed, bitter this time. So you're done. Over a number. Not over a number, I said quietly. Over 3 years of being told I was too emotional when you didn't want to be accountable. Over you forgetting my birthday twice. Over the way you called me a buzzkill when I wanted to talk about the future. Over how I learned to make myself smaller so you wouldn't feel accused by my needs. You're rewriting history, he said. No, I said. I'm finally reading it out loud. He looked up then, really looked. And for a second I saw the boy he used to be, the one who learned charm was a weapon because it always worked. You used to love me. I did. Do you still? That question untied something slow and old in my chest. Love doesn't fall off a cliff. It thins out. It redirects. It grows roots in safer soil. I love what I thought we were, I said, but that version of us doesn't exist anymore. He reached across the table. His fingers brushed mine. We could start over. From where, Ben? I asked. From you still thinking you didn't do anything wrong? He bristled. Everybody flirts. Not to make someone feel small, not to prove you can. He rolled his eyes. So what now? You move on with your perfect life? You ever think maybe you're hard to love? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Maybe I am harder to manipulate than I used to be. That's different. He shook his head, looking more tired than angry. What do you want from me? Know my birthday, I said. Know my mom's name. Remember I'm allergic to shellfish. And when I say I'm hurt, don't tell me I'm adorable. He opened his mouth, shut it. I took pity and stood. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, picking up my coat. But stop pretending it was ever me. Outside, the air had that winter clarity that makes everything look possible. The street was a ribbon of headlights. My phone buzzed as I walked. Nina, did you meet him? Yeah, I didn't get closure. I got confirmation. The thing about starting over is that it's mostly quiet. My studio got a couch, then a thrifted side table with a drawer that sticks. I got a rug the color of wet sand. I put Olive in the corner where she could watch the window, and she rewarded me with one white flower like a surrender flag I hadn't asked for. In the mornings, I made coffee in my kitchen while the city pushed its way into itself. My cat learned the routes between sun patches. At work, this guy named Evan from a tea asked if I wanted to grab a drink after hours. He didn't come with a spotlight or a script. He asked questions and waited for the answers like he didn't already know them. When the check came, he reached for it, and I reached too. Let's split it, I said. I asked you out, he said. Then I'll get the next one, I answered, then flinched because I'd said, next, like it was a promise. He smiled. Next one, and maybe it, I said, and meant it. The group chat with our mutual friends buzzed with someone's birthday dinner. Nina said I should go. You can't hide forever, she told me. Hiding's just staying put with a better name. So I went. And there Derek was across the table with a new girl whose laugh sounded like she was trying it on. I expected the old ache to stand up in me, but it didn't. He looked away first. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. On the way home, the city lights smeared gold on wet pavement. A couple in a cafe window leaned over a shared dessert like they were learning each other's faces. I didn't envy them. I just hoped they both felt seen. Back at my place, I made tea and sat on the balcony with Olive standing like a small white lighthouse behind the glass. I wrote this in my journal. Some people mistake control for love. I finally quit confusing the two. The next morning, I woke to a soft knock. It was a package, no return address. Inside was that damn framed print of Venice. I laughed because, of course. There was a note in an envelope with my name. I didn't need to open it to know it was one of his apologies dressed in a new font. I set the print against the wall. I made coffee. I fed Clementine. Then I slid the note back under the tape. and dropped the whole box in the building's donation corner. Somebody else could decide what it meant. That evening, I rearranged my books, leaving space between the stacks on purpose. I put the photo of my mom on the shelf where it caught the light. I moved the coffee maker 2 inches to the left because it pleased me, and no one was going to call it fussy. I watered Olive. She forgave me for being late. 2 weekends later, I saw Derek again. He was alone this time at a street fair, standing in front of a booth that sold knives sharp enough to cut air. He glanced up and noticed me and did this small nod thing, like we were two people who'd shared a past but not a destiny. I nodded back, that was all. The world didn't pause. The sky didn't dim. A marching band went by playing a song from high school football games, and I laughed out loud because sometimes the universe does send you a joke, just not the one you asked for. Nina's voice lives in my head the way Nina herself lives 2 neighborhoods over, close enough for a flashlight, far enough that you have to choose to go. "You're allowed to be happy," she'd said over takeout once, grease bleeding through paper like a blessing. "You don't need a permission slip to build a quiet life." "Quiet used to scare me," I told her. "Quiet used to mean danger," she said. "Now it means you get to hear yourself think." Evan and I did get that second drink, then a third. He asked things like, "What song did you play too much when you were 16? And what smell takes you back?" I told him it was the scent of gasoline in summer, my dad teaching me how to fill the tank, and also coconut lotion from a beach day gone wrong. He told me about losing his mom too young and how he likes grocery stores because picking things for the week makes him feel like time can be kind. We didn't kiss, we didn't need to. There's a relief in moving slowly and not needing to frame it for Instagram or justify it in the group chat. Sometimes I still hear Derek's laugh in my head and I flinch. That's just how muscle memory works. But the more mornings I make my coffee and water, Olive and scoop Clementine's food and text Nina screenshot of something absurd, the quieter that sound gets. There's a point where healing isn't dramatic. It's just Tuesday. Last night I found the duffel bag under my bed, still half unzipped, like I hadn't decided whether I was leaving or arriving. I pulled it out and dumped it, and what fell onto the rug were ordinary things. An old t-shirt, a book with a bent cover, the napkin from the night at O'Malley's I must have pocketed without thinking. It still had the waitress's number on it, ink a little smudged, like evidence from a case long closed. I held it up to the light, and then on instinct, I set it on fire in the sink. The ash curled into itself like forgiveness I didn't owe anyone. There's this question people want answered when you leave someone. Are you happier now? It's both too big and too small. The right answer is I am more myself. Happiness comes and goes, like weather. Being more myself feels like climate. Tonight, I sit on the balcony with my coffee going cool, the city streaming past like an ocean of headlights. Olive has 2 flowers now. Clementine jumps up beside me, tail thumping my arm like she's testing the space between us. Inside, the place smells like laundry and lemon cleaner and something baking in a neighbor's oven. My phone buzzes, it's Nina. "You up?" I send her a picture of the peace lily with its new white flag. She replies with 17 heart emojis, and then, because she's Nina, just proud of you. I turn my phone face down and listen to the sirens and laughter and the soft engine coughs drifting up from the street. I think about the girl at O'Malley's, how she might still be scribbling orders on napkins, how maybe she's learned not to pass numbers across tables, how maybe she hasn't. I think about Derek's new girlfriend and hope she sees herself in photos. I think about Evan and the slow way he waits for answers. Mostly I think about the quiet that doesn't demand anything from me. When I first left, I thought revenge was a door I might open if I got bored. Now I know revenge is just another room in the same bad house. I want a different house, windows that face the morning, a kitchen that smells like coffee and toast, a life that fits like I bought it in my size. Earlier today, I passed a thrift store and saw an empty gold frame in the window. I went in and bought it for $6. When I got home, I didn't put a picture in it. I hung it above the couch just the way it was, a frame with nothing inside, waiting. Nina laughed when she saw it. "You hung up a hole," she said. "No," I told her. "I hung up a promise." She kissed my cheek and left me with leftovers and the kind of silence that isn't empty. I locked the door behind her, turned on a lamp, and watched Olive sigh toward the light. People ask, "Why did you leave?" Like the story has a single catalyst. It was a sentence. It was a habit. It was the way my birthday lived in the wrong month in his mouth. It was the way I became a person who apologized before I'd said anything at all. It was that napkin, sure, but mostly it was the moment I realized I didn't want to spend the rest of my life explaining why I deserved the basics. I know now the shock wasn't that he said, "You don't own me." The shock was that I believed it meant I needed to stay to prove I wasn't trying to own anyone. Turns out I never wanted ownership. I wanted partnership. Turns out they're not the same. Turns out leaving is sometimes the most honest way to stay with yourself. If you were waiting for a twist, here it is. The big betrayal wasn't his, it was mine. I betrayed myself every time I swallowed a feeling to keep the night easy. Every time I laughed at a joke that made me small. Every time I taught him how to treat me by treating myself like I was just lucky to be there. The twist is that I stopped. "Give me one line to remember," Nina said once, leaning against my counter while we ate cereal out of chip bowls. I thought about it. I thought about notes and keys and coffee makers and peace lilies blooming in their own time. I thought about the way the city looks when you decide to belong to yourself. Then I said, "Okay, here's one." "What?" He said, "You don't own me," I told her, smiling into my spoon. And I finally answered, "I don't want to, I just want someone who chooses to stay." She nodded like a benediction. And tonight, with the window cracked and the kettle singing and Olive lifting her white flags, I say it again, not to anyone in particular, but so the walls of this small, good place can hold it. I don't own anyone. I just choose me first and wait for whoever knows how to meet me there. That's the question that started all of this, the one I didn't know how to ask at O'Malley's. What happens when you stop fighting for someone else's respect and start giving it to yourself? Here's my answer. The room gets quiet. The coffee tastes better. The frame on the wall waits, patient and golden, for whatever you'll dare to place inside it. And the door finally stays open from the inside.